September 1st, 1939. At dawn, German forces crossed into Poland, and the world officially called it the beginning of World War II. But here is the unsettling mystery. By the time this date arrived, the war was already inevitable. Imagine this: millions waking up to headlines of invasion, unaware that the real point of no return had passed years earlier. The surprising fact is that World War II did not explode suddenly. It quietly assembled itself while the world watched and hesitated. Every treaty signed after World War I promised peace, yet each one carried a flaw that pushed the next conflict closer. The paradox is simple and dangerous. The louder leaders spoke about peace, the more they prepared for war. This story begins not with soldiers, but with decisions made in calm rooms by men convinced they were preventing disaster. Instead, they engineered it. To understand why World War II happened, we must follow the timeline backward, into moments that seemed harmless, rational, even necessary. This is not a story of madness. It is a story of logic taken too far, fear left unchallenged, and history whispering warnings that no one wanted to hear. June 28, 1919. The Treaty of Versailles was signed, officially ending World War I and reshaping the world map. Here is the clever part. The treaty didn't just punish Germany, it reprogrammed Europe's future. Germany lost land, military power and dignity, while being handed a financial burden designed to last generations. Imagine this practical process. Factories closed, currency collapsed, savings vanished, and blame became national identity. At the same time, empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire dissolved, replaced by new countries built on unstable borders and unresolved ethnic tensions. These nations looked independent on paper, but were fragile in reality. Then came October 1929, the global economic crash that pushed millions into unemployment and hunger. Democracies moved slowly, debated endlessly, and failed publicly. Extremist movements did the opposite. They offered speed, certainty, and enemies to blame. The overlooked logic is uncomfortable but true. When survival feels threatened, freedom becomes negotiable. By the early 1930s, Europe was not choosing peace or war. It was choosing what kind of order felt strong enough to endure. January 30th, 1933. Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, and here is where the machinery truly turned on. This wasn't chaos, it was engineering. Step by step, Germany rebuilt itself through militarization disguised as recovery. Roads were not just highways, they were runways. Factories were not just workplaces, they were weapon systems. Unemployment dropped because war preparation creates jobs fast. Imagine the controversial brilliance of it. Economic revival powered by future destruction. Other nations noticed but hesitated. March 1936, Germany remilitarized the Rhineland. No response. March 1938, Austria was annexed. No response. September 1938, Czechoslovakia was sacrificed in the name of peace. Here is the forgotten logic behind appeasement. It wasn't ignorance, it was trauma. Leaders remembered 1914 and chose delay over resistance. But delay rewarded aggression. Every unchallenged move taught the same lesson. Power grows when fear enforces silence. By the time resistance seemed necessary, the system-feeding war was already self-sustaining. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor burned and the war became truly global. By now, the consequences were irreversible. Imagine entire economies converted into engines of conflict, producing tanks, aircraft and bombs instead of food and homes. Over 60 million people would die, many of them civilians caught between ideology and machinery. Cities like Warsaw, Dresden, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki became symbols of total destruction. The practical reality was relentless: rationing, forced labour, mass displacement, and industrialized killing. Economically, Europe collapsed under the weight of war, while the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as superpowers defined by scale and endurance. Here is the disturbing efficiency. Science accelerated death, bureaucracy organized genocide, and logistics decided survival. The war didn't just destroy nations, it redefined power, morality, and fear itself. When the fighting ended in 1945, the world was quieter, but not healed. The cost of the war extended far beyond battlefields, reshaping politics, borders, and human memory forever. May 7th, 1945. Germany surrendered, and the world exhaled, believing the nightmare was over. But the deeper lesson of World War II lives far beyond its end date. This war happened not because humanity failed once, but because it failed repeatedly in small, justifiable ways. Peace was rushed, punishment replaced repair, and fear guided policy. Imagine this conclusion not as history, but as a warning system. Wars are not accidents. They are constructions built over time from economic pressure, wounded pride, unchecked ambition, and collective silence. Wars are not accidents. They are constructions built over time from economic pressure, wounded pride, unchecked ambition, and collective silence. Wars are not accidents. They're constructions built over time from economic pressure, wounded pride, unchecked ambition, and collective silence. Wars are not accidents. They are constructions built over time from economic pressure, wounded pride, unchecked ambition, and collective silence. Wars are not accidents. They are constructions built over time from economic pressure, wounded pride, unchecked ambition, and collective silence. The ingenuity behind World War II was not technological. It was psychological. Leaders learned how to mobilize nations through identity, insecurity, and hope twisted into certainty. Leaders learned how to mobilize nations through identity, insecurity, and hope twisted into certainty. Leaders learned how to mobilize nations through identity, insecurity, and hope twisted into certainty. Leaders learned how to mobilize nations through identity, insecurity, and hope twisted into certainty. Understanding why World War II happened matters today because the conditions that created it are never truly gone. They wait. If this story sharpened your awareness, share it. If it challenged what you thought you knew, keep learning. History does not repeat itself loudly. It tests us quietly, then watches what we choose to ignore.